Welcome to the 1905 podcast. Joe and I have been going to Stamford Bridge for over 30 years. For the past 3 years, we've been exchanging voice notes on everything from the highs in Porto to the lows of Potter. Each week, this podcast will take you inside our unfiltered thoughts on all things Chelsea, sharing our view from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes. This week, with pre-season upon us, we discuss why doing well in the US might tell us more about the season ahead than you might think, with memories, good and bad, of years gone by. We take a look through our fingers at Chelsea's new home kit and celebrate the rise of a new Chelsea cult hero, Estrella-drinking European champion Marc Cucurella. To kick off, let's start with a voice note from me on the power of a good pre-season. Right, well, the pre-season's basically here now, isn't it? The first game against Wrexham on July 24th. It feels like it's come around so quickly after the Euros and Copa America, obviously. And I don't know about you, but I'm really excited. You always have that feeling, don't you, at the start of the new season, full of hope. And I think when there's a new manager as well, you're even more intrigued, really, by pre-season and kind of how we're going to shape up. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and all the games in the US and obviously based here in London means probably watching them the next day, extended highlights and stuff like that. But yeah, I really can't wait. And we talked about it briefly last week, but I wanted to talk about it a bit more, which was watching all the training footage that the club have put out and just how strong our squad is going into pre-season. So used to seeing, as we said, all the kids at this point, but when you looked at it, you got Wesley Fofana out there training, Colwill, it was like, okay, those two are back. We haven't seen, obviously, Fofana we didn't see for the whole season. I think Colwill, last time we saw him was about the League Cup final, wasn't it? You've obviously got Nkunku back, Jackson recovering from his injury. There was rumours that he could be out for a while, but he was there training, and obviously all the new boys as well. And it's just really exciting. I think it's exactly what Maresca needed and needs to kind of have as strong a squad as possible. And yeah, really, really encouraging. I mean, Palmer, for all his brilliance in the Euros, played, I think I read, 105 minutes. So he basically played the equivalent of just about one game. So he will hopefully not be too tired. And I wonder if he'll take an extended break or whether he'll end up coming back quite quickly, wanting to play a bit more football. You'd imagine Enzo Fernandez will take a decent break, having just played, obviously, all the games in the Copa. But Casado will be the other one coming back a bit later, and Cucurella, obviously. Other than that, we've actually should have a pretty strong squad right from the start, and I think that could be really important to us going into the season. One thing that I think we wanted to talk about a little bit was how important is pre-season. And I know we've talked about this before and both have a similar view that actually I think it's really important in terms of giving you an idea of what the season is going to be like, at least what the start of the season is going to be like. I think you can learn a lot from what the team looked like in pre-season, and I actually thought it'd be quite interesting to have a look at a couple of pre-seasons to compare them. The ones that I wanted to look at was both under Mourinho. So the 2014-15 season, where we obviously went on to win the league, compared with the season after, the disaster season, where we finished 10th and Mourinho was gone by December. So two very, very different seasons. And my suspicion from memory was that the pre-seasons kind of matched how the season felt. And looking at the results, that very much proved the case. So in 2014-15, we played 8 pre-season games, won 7 of them. So a couple of them are, we beat Wickham 5-0, beat AFC Wimbledon, games like that. But I remember watching some of those games and we looked really, really good. And the one that really sticks out in the memory was the very last game. So we played Real Sociedad in the pouring rain at Stamford Bridge, which they're doing that again this year, aren't we? We're having a game against Inter Milan just before the start of the season. And I think it's always a really smart move because you've got all those new players, means they've already played at the Bridge with the crowd there. Obviously for Maresca, he's used to it. And I remember that game, Diego Costa scored 2. We looked brilliant in the first half of that game, and we then went on to start the season with 4 wins out of 5. So with that game against Burnley on the Monday night, we won 3-1. Beat Leicester, beat Everton 6-3, beat Swansea, and then the only draw amongst the first 5 was away at Man City. when Frank Lampard scored. Remember that? So we won 4 of the first 5 Premier League games and obviously went on to win the league. Compare it to the next season, the disaster season. In that pre-season, if you include the Community Shield, the first thing to note is we didn't play many games. So we only played 5 pre-season games compared to 8 the year before. We didn't win a single one. So we lost to New York Red Bulls 4-2, drew with PSG and Barcelona, and then lost 1-0 to Fiorentina. And then the Community Shield against Arsenal, we lost 1-0. Real miserable game when Oxlade-Chamberlain scored. Petr Cech was in goal for Arsenal. It was his debut. And it was just like, really depressing sort of pre-season. And then we then started the season really badly. Drew at home to Swansea 2-2. That was the game when Courtois got sent off. Remember? In fact, that was the Eva Canero game, which was when it all kicked off. So it was like the worst start possible. Obviously now a legendary moment at the club for all the wrong reasons. And then we drew with Swansea at home 2-2, then lost at Man City 3-0, and beat West Brom and then lost to Palace and Everton. So out of the first 5 games, we won 1 out of 5. So that form carried on completely from pre-season into the start of the season. So they're 2 really good examples, I think, of the importance of what we look like in pre-season. Obviously, results aren't always everything, but I think, if you are getting over the line in games, scoring goals and all that kind of stuff, I think it can make a big difference. So yeah, love to know what you think.
Evening, mate. I hope you're all right. But I've just come out to futsal with the boys and it's raining again. It's July and it's rained pretty much every day since it started. So wonderful. I think as for pre-season, I think it's massively important. I think particularly when you have a new manager, the likes of Ferguson and Klopp and Guardiola and managers like that tend to be at their clubs a fairly long time, or a very long time in Ferguson's case. I think players coming back from holidays and breaks and end of seasons and tournaments, I think they kind of know that what to expect. There's always going to be tweaks with their managers and they'll mix it up, I'm sure, here and there to kind of keep it all interesting. But I think overall, you need you don't really need to kind of be there every second of the day. I think you kind of get to know what's going to happen. I think with Chelsea, the fact they change manager so often, it kind of, you feel as though, particularly with a guy like Maresca, he just has that air of detail, doesn't he? Just looking at him and the way he's talking to the players in the huddles and the way they're listening to every word he's saying. The fact he's given them basically homework. Here's your tablets, here's your individual drills, what I want you to eat, what I want you to drink, how I want you to train, what formations we're going to play, what we're going to do here, what we're going to do there. Do you know what I mean? You can just sense everything to be on that tablet. It's going to be absolutely analysed to, within an inch of their life. So I think with him, I think it's important that you've got Reece James, even though he's not actually available for the first 3 games, he's there on the field, listening and taking it all in. And of course, you mentioned it with all the first team players, barring a couple that you've already mentioned. It's important that they kind of are there. And I think the fact that we're going into a season where we've been kind of below par, getting better, but still a bit below par, this young team mentality, which we are, but at some point you can't keep saying you're a young team. At some point you've got to kind of push on and break through that barrier. So I think getting, not just having players back, having the right players back, and it's hugely important. And again, you mentioned it there with a few of the games that through the pre-season outings that we've had in the last few years. Some have been absolutely dreadful and some have been pretty good. And I think if you dug down into the numbers, you probably find that the ones that were pretty good, we had a pretty good season. So I think it does make a big difference. I also think having Dewsbury Hall there is going to be really important. I remember Jordan Henderson when he was at Liverpool, you kind of had that sense of, he was I know he was captain, but he felt really important to them, that when new players came into the squad and stuff like that, he would have been the general on the field who was kind of going, look, no, this is how we do it. This is what we're going to do. He doesn't expect this. That's not good enough. And I feel as though, even though Dewsbury Hall is a new player, and in some cases he won't supersede some of the ones that are there currently. I feel as though, because he knows the system, he knows what to expect, and he had it all last year, he can get to those younger players quicker. And he is 25, and he does have that kind of experience over quite a lot of them, that he can kind of say, no, this is not how you do it. We don't do that. And it's not so much always when the game's being played or the training is being played. It's more in the stoppages, and when you're not being spoken to, but you're all standing with him. He will give them the information to kind of say, this is what he expects. That's not good enough. I think he can be a little general for us. He's kind of, I think, potentially a little bit of captain material. It won't happen, obviously, Reece James is captain, but I'm just sort of saying, like, you need more than one captain. If we knew that with Drogba and Ballack and Terry and Lampard, all these captains we had over the years, I think it's important to get players like Dewsbury Hall into the team quickly and playing enough minutes that he can be effective, and he can kind of get into some of these young players and say, do you know what, dig a few out and say, no, that's not right. We need to be better. As a team, we must be better. So I think he could be pretty integral for us this year. I think lastly, as a fan, look, I'm not going to question Maresca or anyone like that. I just would like them to be less system-based, in the sense that have a plan A, have a plan B, and have a plan C. So many times we see managers, and not just at Chelsea, I'm talking other clubs as well, where you look at that team and you go, they refuse to change for the circumstances that they're in. And that doesn't just mean your Bolton Wanderers or your Blackburn or whatever. I'm talking about sometimes with Chelsea, and Arsenal were guilty of it for years. They go to Bolton and they try and play Bolton off the park, you know, this tiki-taka football, and Bolton would just go bish, bash, bosh, smash it in the box, long throws. Stoke City was another one, the lap, get amongst the goalkeeper, you know, really make it difficult for them. And Arsenal just never adjusted. Mourinho was great at that. And some managers for Chelsea over the years have been great at that. They adjust to the team they're playing against. And I think not just in the domestic leagues, in Europe as well, you need to be able to play. That's why Chelsea was so horrible to play against for years, with that Ballack, Drogba, Terry, you know, that huge, powerful men, Ivanovic, you know, these guys that they didn't give you an inch. They could play you off the park, but they could bully you off the park as well. And I think that, I just hope that Maresca doesn't come with this, I play this way and only this way, because that's the only thing I think that's going to hold him back. I'm sure he won't do that. I'm sure he's got a plan A, B and C, like I just said earlier on. But that would be my biggest worry, is that we get so ingrained in one particular way of playing, and the players go, right, this is what he wants, and we're going to play this way and only this way. Because Leicester did lose a few games last year, and obviously the quality of their team is not like ours. But I just hope that there is a definite way that we're going to go, okay, it's not going right for us today. We're not playing well, so we're going to sling on this player and that player, and we're going to play a slightly different way. Or perhaps it's a case of we're going to go into this game with a mentality that they're not expecting. So we might go a bit more direct, or we might play more football, or whatever it might be. But I just hope there is a definite plan for every circumstance that we come up against, because there will be massive challenges this year. So, mate, I'm, like you, buzzing for pre-season, and I hope they all get their fitness and everyone stays healthy. That's the main thing.
Hello, mate. Smudge here. Just thought I'd drop you a note about the kits for next season that they've just released. Not great, I don't think, would be first impressions. I think they're trying to be too clever with the home kit, when most fans would prefer something a bit more traditional, like the first one they produced for us. I think that's probably the only home kit that Nike have done, which I've really liked. Again, the white away kit, pretty bland. Third kit, I don't mind. The black and pink, I think this was the one that they were talking about having branded up as Jordan originally. But yeah, I think that first impressions of the three, that's definitely my favourite. I was quite excited when we got Nike in to replace Adidas. I thought they'd freshen things up again. But I think the team where the training kits and what have you have been okay, but the kits generally have been a bit disappointing. I think the Adidas collections that they brought out were a bit more inventive and just really hit the mark a bit more. I was a lot more on board with those. So yeah, when we come to the end of the Nike deal, hopefully Adidas will be back in looking at some of the kits they've produced for the new season. I think their designers are definitely ahead of the game at the moment. I think, in fairness, a lot of the kind of more iconic kits haven't been kind of instant hits with me. You know, you look back at the grey and orange cause one. I think when that came out, I thought it was horrendous. But I think when it's associated with the iconic players and the iconic moments that we had in the kit, then it grows on you over the years. Similarly with the yellow and blue auto glass one we had, you look back at Viali and the others playing in it, and fond memories now. I guess the other thing to consider is obviously we still haven't tied down the sponsor for next year, so that will change the overall appearance of the kits a bit more, I guess, once they're all branded up. Sounds like it might be Infinite Athlete again, or someone else coming in. So yeah, as I say, hopefully we can have some positive memories and a decent season, and we'll look back at this one more favourably as well.
I think since Nike have taken over the Chelsea kits, they've done a pretty terrible job every time. The first ever one they did, which was I think 2017, 2018 kit, was absolutely lovely, really nice, proper royal blue, really simple. And I was like, oh, brilliant, actually, this is really nice. And it was like inspired by the 70s kit, and this is great. But since then, every year it comes out, I'm like, oh, what have they done now? And I thought last year's kit was awful. And then this one comes out, you think, oh, okay, you've managed to make it even worse. I think they've got the weird fluorescent badge thing again. And then, I mean, I'm a marketing man. And even as a marketing guy, I can look at that campaign and go, oh my God, what a load of nonsense. This idea of it being flames and all that kind of stuff, it's just awful. And I'm trying to work out why they do it. And I was talking to my brother-in-law about it at the weekend because I'd seen the teasers. I said, have you seen it? So as you know, Alex is a designer, clothes designer for a pretty major, very big high street brand. And I was really interested to get his view on it. And he's got two young lads who are Chelsea fans who might be listening. Hello, Abby and Grayson, if you're listening. And I was like, why do they do that? I was trying to get his perspective as a designer of why they do these kind of garish, weird designs. And he was like, two reasons. One, the kids, obviously, actually, his boys are 10 and 6, and they love that kind of thing where it's a bit crazy and quirky and stuff. So it kind of really plays into the kids thing. And the second thing he said, from a design point of view, you want each year it to be very different from the last. So whereas someone like me, probably quite traditional, wants just a simple blue kit each year, actually the more different it is, the more likely they are to sell new shirts, because obviously people are, oh, okay, that's really different to the last one, so I can't just have the same kit. So that was interesting, but yeah, it looks awful. I won't be getting it. And of course, we still don't have a sponsor, which is, again, as I've spoken about before, just a little bit embarrassing. The training kits are nice, though. I don't know if you've seen any of those, but the training kits that I think that Dewsbury Hall was unveiled in is actually really nice. They look quite good. I might invest in one of those. But yeah, the actual kit, no chance. Hey, it's Chris here with a really quick message. Check us out on Instagram at 1905 Podcast. You'll find video clips, photos, and much more about everything we discuss on the show. Plus, it's a great way to get in touch, to tell us your thoughts, share your feedback, or just say hi. Follow us on Instagram at 1905 Podcast. And now, back to the show.
So Chelsea has a European champion. And no, it's not Cole Palmer or Conor Gallagher, fortunately. But we do have a Marc Cucurella. And wow, what a performance he had. What a fantastic Euros. I mean, it couldn't actually happen to a nicer guy. He just seems such a good fella. I know he winds a lot of opposition fans up. I've watched a lot of games with friends and family throughout this tournament, and everybody hates him. They just really dislike him. But I think it's because he goes down quite easy and he rolls about a little bit. We all know that. But he wins fouls, he gets free kicks, he kind of eats time up. And when he's on your team, you love him, don't you? And there's not a bad thing to say about him, but these Arsenal and Tottenham fans I've been watching England games with, it can be quite funny when you're listening to them, because I don't say a lot. I just kind of let them have their say, and I just kind of go, oh yeah, all right, yeah, not too bothered. But I'm really pleased for him. I'm pleased he stuck it to Gary Neville, because I think that was a real shot in the arm for him, because I watched that interview that Neville gave about Cucurella, and it was really unjust. He clearly hasn't watched him the second half of the season properly, or if he has done, he's just completely ignored it, because he was basing him on his first season under Potter, which was completely wrong. He's actually on the TV now. I'm just seeing him now. The Gareth Southgate resigns as England manager headline just come up, and Neville's obviously got a lot to say about that. But Cucurella was just really, really humble. He never kind of got out of his pram. He just kept a level head. He kept playing, kept doing the right things. And those Spanish players, you can clearly see they love him. I don't even think he was going to be a starter necessarily at the start of the tournament. I think he was probably going to be maybe number 2, or maybe not even go to the squad, from what I was hearing. And then suddenly he was the starter. So fair play to him. He took his chance, and it can only give Chelsea a massive boost. He comes back, a European champion, kind of that no fear factor now. He's kind of got all the nonsense from the first season out of the way. And we'll go on to say a couple of things about that first season in a moment. But obviously his performance levels weren't what he would have liked, and he clearly didn't settle that well. Now, the reason for that was there was some awful things that happened to him in that time. One was that he got very, very ill, to the point where he couldn't even train, which has come out recently. Like really, really ill. A lack of form, clearly, was not helping him, and systems, and I don't think Chelsea were in a good place, because they kept chopping and changing the team. Do you remember pack 3, pack 4? Potter was pretty clueless, and I don't think he really ever gave him the right tools, almost the right kind of guidance to show him where he wanted him to play and what he wanted him to do. Again, keep it simple, and I think he was trying to overcomplicate it every single week. But obviously, he had a big home invasion as well, but his family were in the house, and it was, from what I gather, it was quite bad. And I think we all need to look at that on a human level and go, it doesn't matter if you're a football player, a tennis player, a bin man, a bin woman, whatever you are, that's no joke. And to be petrified, come to a new team, a new club, there's a big fee on his head, 62 million quid. And Chelsea obviously spent a few quid at the time, and it was almost like a laugh a minute. Oh, look what they've signed now. He's no good. Oh, these owners don't know what they're doing. Blah, 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 blah. The same old tripe. They kept getting reeled out. And he had to obviously clearly get over that. And it shows you that he's got real character now. And he does have a bit of a cheeky side to him. And I can see him being a real asset for us. And I hope he can bring this European Championship form back to Chelsea next season, because it will be so good if he can, because I just feel he could be a leader. Another one. I'm talking about leaders a lot, I know, but I think you need experiences. This is an experience. He's not a kid no more. I know he's not like 20 or anything, but he's still young in a sense of the Premier League. It was only this was his 3rd season just gone, but you could almost write one of those off, because he didn't play very well, and he didn't play very much in that second season. So he's only really had 2 proper seasons. One was at Brighton, where there was no expectation on him, and suddenly now he comes to Chelsea with all the expectation, and he didn't quite live up to it. But last year he started to, and we could see that, and that's why Spain picked him for the Euros, and I'm so proud of him. One last thing about Cucurella was, I don't know if you remember, there was a game, and I forget which one it was, but it was at the Bridge, and I believe he came on for Chilwell. It could have been the other way around, but I think he came on, and the whole ground pretty much in unison got up and booed that decision. And he must have felt like he wanted to die inside, because I know I would have done. He couldn't catch a break. And look, fans turn up, they pay their money, they're entitled to their opinion. I understand that. I'm one of them. I get it. I was never really Cucurella on the hate train. I was disappointed in his performances. He wasn't living up to what he was doing. We didn't know about the invasion at the time. We didn't know about the sickness and all the other things that were at play. But I do feel as though nobody really deserves that, particularly from your home fans. I think that's something as a club and a team that we're usually pretty good at. We don't tend to boo our players. But there's been a few instances recently. Sterling got a little bit last year and stuff like that. And I think it's something we do need to definitely avoid. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the team. It doesn't help the individual. But again, it's something when you've had your home crowd stand up and basically say, "Get off! I've had enough of you," or "Why is he coming on?" Because I can't remember which way around it was. It's pretty poor, and it's like something else he's had to overcome, and he's had to prove Chelsea fans wrong. And hopefully now, when he goes back to Brighton, he can give them as much stick as they give him too. So good luck to him. I'm really proud of him. I'm really happy that he's managed to get his trophy, and he's obviously had his moment in the limelight, because all the Spanish players have been pushing him to the front of the queue with regards to singing his song after the game, and obviously at dinners and all those things they've done afterwards and their after parties. So good luck to the guy. Hopefully he brings that back to Chelsea next year, and we will look forward to seeing some good performances from him. So well done, Mark. Top lad.
Oh, mate, I think you're absolutely spot on about Cucurella. I think actually most of us have seen a different side of him during the Euros that we didn't really realise was there. And it could be a really interesting redemption arc for him because, as you said, if you go back a year, I think pretty much 90% of Chelsea fans would probably been happy to see him go after that first season. You just couldn't see him, being a big part of the team or a big part of the club at any point. But it's funny how that little run he had at the end of the season, when he was obviously actually really good playing in that inverted fullback role, which could be perfect for Maresca, of course, that changed a few opinions, I think. And you kind of go, got people's attention. And then the way he's played and actually been in the Euros, not just the brilliant performances on the pitch, he was probably the best left-back at the Euros, wasn't he? But all of this personality stuff that you've seen, I think is something that you and me have talked about before, that you've kind of been looking for a while with Chelsea, is those characters. It was what we liked about Rudiger towards the end, when he he had a bit of a redemption arc as well, didn't he? Where he went from being a bit of a liability actually under Lampard to being probably one of the best defenders in Europe. And obviously he's gone on to kind of grow even more at Real Madrid. And you kind of look at Cucurella and think, yeah, he really could end up being a key part of the team next season. And as you say, could be a leader. So, yeah, really fair play to him. And like you said, he really wasn't going to be in the squad. I think there was a great video that came around on social media before the tournament when he was with his family, when it got announced on TV that was in the squad. And they all jumped up going crazy and stuff. And it was kind of a really heartwarming moment. And then the fact, as you say, got in the team, took his chance and has been brilliant. So he will, I am certain, get a very good reception when he comes back to Chelsea, and could be a very interesting kind of redemption story. So yeah, as you say, fair play to Mark. So the podcast for this week was basically done and edited and ready to hit publish. And then the Argentina and Enzo Fernandez situation all came out. So we wanted to add a voice note at the end about that. And the first thing to say, I think, is to absolutely condemn the song and the chant and everything related to it. Obviously, they are rightly getting both barrels from the media and fans alike, and every single one of them is having to come out with apologies, and that's absolutely right. And I think they need to learn that this kind of thing never should have happened, but certainly in this day and age cannot be allowed to happen. That's the first thing to say. Second thing, and let's focus on Chelsea and Enzo Fernandez, is that he has to, in my opinion, be asked to come back from holiday early and address this face-to-face with the players. The stuff coming out is that he has obviously done a statement, but also apologised to the team, his teammates, presumably through WhatsApp and stuff like that. But in my mind, if I'm Maresca and the club, they are demanding that he comes back to Cobham. Doesn't have to obviously fly over to the US right away, but I think he should be there in person, and they need to address this because it's not going anywhere. And the media, as we know, are only going to stir this up. And actually for Maresca, it's a nightmare, because I imagine the last thing he wants to be even thinking about is doing a press conference with the club or anything like that at the moment, where all the questions are rightly going to be about this situation. So I believe Chelsea should make a statement in terms of getting Fernandez back to the club, handle this head on. It is a really difficult situation, because if, as is coming out, the Chelsea players like Fofana, Badiashile, Disasi, etc., are as angry and upset as the media are saying about it, then this is a really difficult situation, and they need to handle it quickly. And for Maresca and the club's sake, and for Fernandez's sake, that they do it quickly, because actually this carrying on as it is not helping anyone. So that's my view on it. We'll obviously, I think, see what happens over the next few days. But we wanted to make sure we put something at the end of the podcast to address it, because it is such an important issue. And actually, for Chelsea, with our history as a club, it's probably more important for us than any other club actually right now to make sure we get this right. Okay, so we end each episode with a question as always, and my question is for Joe. So with pre-season upon us and many Chelsea players set to wear a blue shirt for the first time, I wanted to know, who has been your favourite ever Chelsea debut? That one Chelsea player who the first time you saw him play for Chelsea, you just thought, wow, we've got something pretty special here. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks for the question, mate. I always think, what was your first instinct? What was your reaction, your snap reaction? And for me, it was Eden Hazard against Wigan. Wow, it was just mind-blowingly brilliant. He was man of the match that day, 2 assists, created all sorts of problems for Wigan. And I know it was only Wigan, and I think sometimes people always go, oh, well, yeah, could he do it against Man United? Could he do it against Man City? Yes, was the answer to that, and we found that out a little bit further down the line. To steal him from Lille for 30 million, obviously just after winning the Champions League, it really didn't get much better. So, again, his assist for Ivanovic for the first goal, and then obviously his dribble into the box, takes on one, takes on another one, gets hacked down. Lampard dispatches the penalty, makes it 2-0, and it made it a really comfortable afternoon for us. And it wasn't just his assist and his the fact that we got him for a good price. It was his general play. He wanted the ball off of everybody, and that, again, it wasn't a one-game thing, because when you have a debut, I think it's always very easy to kind of be pumped up for it and excited and want to do your best. But Hazard did that week in, week out, rain, wind or shine. He was basically just a superstar. Arguably, for me, at times the best player of the world. I know people always say Messi and people always say Ronaldo. Hazard was definitely in that conversation for a while. And even when he wasn't in that conversation, he was always a top 4 or 5 player. So, in my opinion, he always seems to be criminally underrated by certain sections of the media and the world. I think perhaps because Belgium didn't win a Euros or a World Cup, maybe because he played for Chelsea in a time where Chelsea weren't exactly very popular. I don't really know, but again, very underrated. And I think he started to get his kudos as he got older, which I thought was really unfair. He needed that kind of limelight a lot earlier, but he was wonderful against Wigan that day. As debuts go, it doesn't get much better. And if you remember, we had, I believe he came off for Oscar, and Mata was already on the field. And then we had that trio of Oscar, Mata and Hazard. I mean, they were just fantastic as a three. They never got in each other's spaces. You see the England team at the moment with Kane, Foden and Bellingham. They all want to occupy the same space in the same area. Whereas those three just knew if Mata was there, Hazard would go somewhere else. And if Oscar was there, Mata would go somewhere else. And it was all that feeling of they were just such clever players. It would have been lovely to have seen them play together for a lot longer than they did. But as with life, things do move on. And Mourinho came in and he obviously upset Mata a little bit. And then Oscar went to China a bit after that. So, yeah, it was at that particular time, it was a wonderful time to be a Chelsea fan. And, yeah, we were fresh off the back of a Champions League victory. So the sky was the limit, and we all felt absolutely pumped. It was just a fantastic Chelsea team, and that's without the likes of Lampard and Terry and all the usual names that we've mentioned before. So, yeah, a real powerhouse team, and they kind of gave us that flair and excitement that we've been craving for so long. So, easy for me, best debut I've ever seen, Eden Hazard.
Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree and remember, every little thing's gonna be all right.